Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been quite a while since I have really filmed in general, but have filmed a book video for you guys. So I was at the beginning of the year telling you all the books that I have been reading and just telling you a really brief synopsis, as spoiler free as I can fathom doing, and giving you my thoughts on them, what I rated them on my Goodreads account, which is I'll leave in my description box if you want to follow me on there. More than welcome. See what I'm reading. And I feel like some of you enjoyed it. It's been quite a while since I've done one of those. So instead of going through every single book that I have read since February or March, since the last time I did this video, I just went through my list of books that I had read since then, and I picked out the couple that I thought were really worth mentioning. And there's only 4 of them. Haven't read that many great things over the last few months, and I haven't read as much in the last few months than I had in the beginning of the year. I have read a total of 30 books so far, so I am really proud of that. I'm really feeling good about where I'm at on my book goal for the year. I had the goal of reading 50, so I think I will probably hit that, you know, fairly easily, I would hope. But yeah, I just haven't read as much in the last few months. I am definitely somebody that gets into like these reading moods, and I'm sure I'm not alone, where like in January and February, I read like 10 books a month. And then I've read a collective 10 books over the last 3 months since then. So it's like really hot and cold with me sometimes, like if I want to read or if I don't at all. But that is what it is. So like I said, I went through my book list of the books that I've read since I last chatted with you guys about them, and I picked out just a few that I thought were even worth mentioning. So if you want to see all of the books that I've read, feel free to go to my Goodreads. I have a bookshelf that says books read in 2021, pretty easy to navigate to, and you can see everything that I have read thus far this year. And also in other years, I have a bookshelf going back to 2012, I think was my first one. So you can see what I've read every year for almost the last 10 years. So that's kind of interesting to see what I've read over a good chunk of my life. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to mention that I read was I reread Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I don't really need to say too much about this. I'm assuming you've also read the Harry Potter series, but occasionally I like to pop in a Harry Potter here and there because I just love it so much, and I love listening to the audiobooks. 5 stars. All around 5 stars. Really enjoy it. And if you've never listened to the audiobooks, I would seriously recommend them because the narrator is just so good. So I did read Harry Potter. I also read Pet Sematary. I've got a little note with the books written down. Pet Sematary by Stephen King. This was a 5-star read for me. This was so good. So if you know Stephen King, he writes creepy, supernatural, thriller, mystery type novels, king of horror, suspense. And his novels for me and his writing can be really hit and miss. I find that he really tends to drag on a lot, and sometimes his details are over the top, and that's what makes him an amazing writer, but I don't always love that in a book. So it just depends on what your personal preference is. But Pet Sematary is fantastic. I know the story. I've seen the movies. This was not a new concept to me, but I hadn't read the book, and I am so glad that I did. So Pet Sematary is about a family who moves to a rural town in Maine, and they live on a really busy road where a lot of big semi trucks come by. And right behind their house, there is a pet cemetery where when you bury pets, mystical, magical things happen. And so it's just a story of the events that happen when that cemetery is discovered and how it is misused and abused, and some of the scary things that happen resulting from it. I don't want to tell you what happens at the cemetery, and it might be like in the description, but I'm not entirely sure, so I don't want to give it away if it's not. But if you like spooky stories, if you like thriller, mystery, supernatural, paranormal, I give this book a try. It is so good. Don't read it late at night. Don't read it late at night. I gave that book a 5 stars and I moved it to my favorite like book list on Goodreads, so I always remember how much I loved it, and maybe we'll reread it someday. The next book I read was My Dark Vanessa. You guys, this has been all over Goodreads. This is not a book that is new per se. It's at least a few years old. I've heard a lot of people rave about it, and this was really, really good. So this is about a girl who is sexually abused by her teacher, and it is goes back and forth between the present and the past and everything that happened when she was a kid, and then her relationship with this man as she got older. And it's so hard to read because she really feels like she was in love with him. And as the reader, you can see all the ways that he was grooming her and just not being a good person. All the ways that he was, you know, grooming her and doing all of these things to her that outside looking in, you can see those things, but in that situation, she couldn't see it. And so it is a hard read. If any of that stuff bothers you, I would not recommend this book, but it is a beautiful story. I really, really enjoyed this. I gave this a 4 stars on Goodreads, and this is not a novel that I would normally pick up. It's not 100% my cup of tea, but I'm so glad I gave it a shot. I kind of stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit because it's a very good, dark, I don't even want to say romance because that's such the wrong word for it, but obviously there is romance in it, or what is thought of as romance, but that is just not the right word to describe what's happening in that novel by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a really good book. Let's just leave it at that. And I really enjoyed it. And then the last book I wanted to mention was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I was so stoked to pick this book up because I've read actually quite a bit of Taylor Jenkins Reid, but only The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and, what's the other one? Daisy Jones and The Six really have stood out to me. And it's probably, to most of you, those are definitely her 2 most popular books, and for good reason. They're beautifully written. They are wonderful novels. So I was really excited to see Malibu Rising coming out because I thought this is just going to be like the next great Taylor Jenkins Reid novel. And I wanted to mention it on here because it's popular right now, and I think it's a book that a lot of people will want to read. And I will say, for me, it was just an okay read. I didn't like it near as much as her other 2 novels that, you know, are raved about, but I enjoyed it. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I wish that you could do like half stars because I feel like it deserved more than a 3, but it wasn't a 4. I would say, like, if I could give it my own rating, it'd be like a 3.5. You know, it was better than your average book, but it wasn't one that I'm going to rave about or read again or put it on like a favorites list. But it was a little more than just like an average read. That's kind of where I saw it. I enjoyed this novel, but I kind of was left wishing that there was more. There was some connections in the novel to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I thought was really interesting and exciting. So if you hadn't read that, you want to be able to pick up those little nuances. So that was really fun. But basically Malibu Rising is about a family, and basically it's just like their family history. So there's 4 siblings. They live in Malibu, and it's about their life growing up with their mother and their father, who is a rock star, and kind of that dynamic and their relationships together and how they had to get through hard times as a family. It's basically just about the family and that dynamic, and goes through their life story. So there wasn't too much of like a plot to the story. It literally was just like a telling of their life, kind of. And there is something that happens at the end and that, you know, is talked through about the book, like the fire that happens in Malibu. But overall, I didn't find it to be amazing. It was enjoyable. Like I said, 3.5 stars, but I wanted to mention at least my opinions on it because, like I said, I know that people are wanting to read it for obvious reasons, but I still think Evelyn Hugo is number 1, Daisy Jones and the Six for me is number 2, and this would definitely fit in as a perfect number 3. I definitely liked it more than her other novels that I've read from her, but it's not as good as her first 2, you know, kind of big stars that I really love. But those are all the books that I wanted to mention, just really short and sweet, but I hope that if any of these have been on your list or that maybe this was helpful for you. What have you guys been reading lately? I'm always looking for recommendations. Currently, I am reading The Maidens from the same author that wrote The Silent Patient, and I'm almost done with it. So that will be my next book read. So we'll see if it makes it onto the list the next time I do one of these videos. But I really hope that you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.